Welcome. My name is Suzanne Axtell, and I lead many of the diversity initiatives at O'Reilly Media. I'm really excited to be here to welcome you to our diversity lunch. It sounds like there's been some really great discussions underway already, so that's great to hear. If you need some ideas, we've got bingo cards and topic ideas, so continue the conversation. I did want to let you know that one of the things we're very passionate about at O'Reilly is spreading the knowledge of innovators. And this includes raising the visibility, ideas, and perspectives of people from underrepresented groups. From speaking at conferences to creating content for our online learning platform, we want to help everyone share their ideas with the world. And so if you'd like more information about ways to work with us, say hi to me, go visit the O'Reilly booth in the expo hall, or you can also go to o'reilly.com/diversity. And then before I introduce our speaker, I just want to let you know that we're going to have some time for Q&A at the end and discussion. So get your questions ready. There'll be a mic in the middle of the floor where we can ask questions. So I also wanted to thank everyone who contributed to Code Nation when you registered for the conference. I'm really glad that we have a member of the Code Nation team here to share more about the great work that they do and how we can all create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive tech industry. Andrew Mulinge. Welcome, Andrew. Andrew is a program manager at Code Nation and is an educator, researcher, and advocate for equity-based education for all students. His experiences and interests have been primarily focused on researching, developing, and implementing best practices that improve educational, health, and social opportunities for boys and young men of color. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here representing Code Nation. Good afternoon. How's everyone feeling? The food is delicious, right? You tried the egg rolls? Egg rolls are delicious. You got to get the sauce. It's really good. Okay, so thank you, Suzanne, for your introduction. My name is Andrew Mulinge. As she mentioned, I represent Code Nation, a tech ed nonprofit based in New York City, the Bay Area, and in Chicago. We just started Chicago this year. So today I want to talk more about diversity. Surprise, because this is the diversity lunch. But I really wanted to take this time to really level set and have you all understand what diversity means, but also two other words that are often thrown around, but are seldom understood. So those are equity and inclusion. So I'm going to start with defining those terms. I'm also going to talk about how this creates an impact for the tech industry, and then talk about some tangible solutions that you can take away right after this lunch. So let me just first start off by asking everyone, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in your journey of understanding diversity, equity, and inclusion? 1 being, I have no idea what those words mean. And 10 being, you are like the Beyonce of DEI. Just shout them out. We'll take them. 7, okay, that's pretty, okay, yeah. 10, I hear 10. 6, okay, all right, so, we're all over the place, and you can keep whatever number you have in your head. I heard you, so that's okay. So I want to take this time to actually go over what each means. So diversity often is associated with having an individual, having respect for individuals that are of different backgrounds, right? It's mostly associated with gender and race and ethnicity. But as you can just see in this picture, there's so much more to what diversity means. And so it's not only just your background, it's your religious beliefs, it's your socioeconomic status, it's where you grew up, it's all these different factors that make you, you. And so diversity is about not just tolerating our differences, but embracing them in a way that is conducive for everyone to feel like themselves. Which leads me to my next point, inclusion. So I really love this quote. This quote says, diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. And so when we talk about diversity, often the million-dollar question is, how can we get more folks of color, women in the tech industry? But the $10 million question here is, how can we keep them? How can we ensure that folks that are entering careers, fields that they are underrepresented, how can they feel that they can show up as themselves in that industry? So that's what inclusion is. Equity. Equity is often associated with equality. Equality is a word that we all kind of aspire to have in our society. Equality is talking about if everyone had the same thing, we'll be good, right? Equity is getting at the root causes of what certain demographics will need to overcome in order to achieve that equality. So as you can see in the picture, everyone is given the same stool. Person on the right is not able to see, right? So the person on the right in equity will need a taller stool. And so equity is more focused your framing around what we can do to correct and address historical trauma and historical disadvantages of certain groups. So I wanted to show a video. I wanted to show a quick video. Let me get out of here really quick. That kind of shows what happens when we are not. Excuse me. Okay, well, it's not showing, so I'll tell you what happened, because actually this is a true story. So imagine this. I'm at a conference, something like this. I had to run to the restroom, right? I go to my sink, and I put my hand under the water. The water doesn't come out. I'm like, what the heck? What am I supposed to do? I need to wash my hands so I can get back to the conference. And I'm staying there, and I eventually was able to make it work. I found some hand sanitizer sink outside in the kitchen. But it dawned on me, I was like, well, I wonder if other people are having this problem. And so when I wanted to find an example of what this could look like to show you all, I Googled it. I was like, sink not working, why? And there were a lot of different reasons, and one of the reasons that popped up was that the sensors on the sink were not detecting my darker skin tone. And so this video was actually an example of how someone else noticed that, and he brought his white colleague to the soap dispenser. And he asked his white colleague to put his hand under the soap dispenser, and it came, right? And then he put his hand and was not working. So then he was like, okay, let me put this paper towel, this white paper towel, let me put it here. It worked. And then he put his hand back. And so this is actually a very tangible example, right, of how if we're not being thoughtful of our of incorporating diversity, equity, inclusion in our tech, this can have lasting impact on the world in ways that are unintended, right? And so you can look it up. There's a few articles on it, but that's essentially what it is. And I kind of explained what the video was in this question. I was supposed to ask you this question, but any thoughts on that? Just on thoughts? It's okay, no problem. So this kind of leads us to our next point of just kind of laying it plain. What's the problem with the tech industry right now? So less than 20% of tech jobs are filled by women. Black and Latinx professionals each make up about 7% of the US tech workforce. And so when we talk about this next number, which is 1 million jobs in tech, which will be available next year, who are these jobs going to, right? So how are we as a society creating opportunities for the 1.5 million jobs in software and web development, which is one of the largest and fastest growing categories in the tech industry? So, as we just mentioned, as a recap, as we just mentioned, the consequences of having a lack of diversity, equity, inclusion first stem from like your products suffer from having a focus on this, right? So those lived experiences, imagine having a person of color, maybe a person of my skin tone working on that team that was creating the sync sensor. I'm probably gonna test it on myself, right? Or I'm going to raise that, you know, if I'm not on that team, I'm gonna say like, hey, like maybe we should be more inclusive of how this can work in shadows, in dark environments, or and the like. So your products suffer from equality, right? Second, there's a lot of missed opportunities to reach target audiences, right? So this is a financial incentive as well. And third, it contributes to a growing income inequality gap. As I'm sure you all know, the tech industry has higher paying jobs. We have so many more jobs that are available. How can we work together to be able to address the inequality gap? So this is the main question that we're trying to answer here. So how can we make the tech industry more equitable, diverse, and inclusive? So in 3 simple words: access, skills, and opportunities. And I'll break these down in 3 easily digestible ways. So first, we need to find ways to diversify the tech pipeline. So by raise of hands, how many of you knew in high school that you wanted to enter some type of career in tech, or you had some aspiration, right? Or even if it's not in high school, just like, you know, early 20s or whatever it is, right? So lots of folks in here. Research actually shows that when you're in high school or when you're in your tweens, that's when you're really deciding if you would like to be in tech. And so when we look at the landscape in the US, less than 50% of our schools, our high schools, have computer science offerings. And so at Code Nation, we work with under-resourced high schools, because it's not just 50%, right? That's 50% of all schools. Under-resourced schools, it's even less than that. So we worked specifically in under-resourced high schools to be able to provide more careers for our students. So how our approach works. We start in around 10th or 11th grade. We have different schools all across the city, from Harlem to Bed-Stuy, and also in the Bay Area and Chicago. And we teach, our course is taught by volunteers that work at all these different tech companies, just like yourselves. And they teach HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then once students want to move on to the next level, we have a fellowship, a 1 to 2 year fellowship that takes place at a tech company. So we've been with Salesforce, we've been with Google, SeatGeek, a lot of really cool companies. And this is where students can kind of take that next step and really see themselves at a tech company. And they're doing this, you know, 11th grade, 12th grade, which is amazing. And then once our students graduate, they enter our alumni program, and we support them in that as well. So our students reflect what we are trying to push towards in the computing workforce. 45% of our students identify as female and Black. 80% of our Black and Latinx, and they're coming from households that are on average about 43,000 with a family of 4. And so if we look at the computing workforce, it obviously is a problem that we're hoping to solve through our work. We also have other programs that are doing really great work to diversify the industry. And this is a Marcy Lab School. This is a school that just opened up in Brooklyn. They focus on 18 to 24-year-olds. And Grace Hopper, how many of you guys are familiar with Grace Hopper? Yes, Grace Hopper is amazing, and they're trying to get more women in tech. So 2, educate the general public. So 74% of our students that have finished our program are pursuing computer programming in one way or another, whether that be through school or through a job, and that's amazing, that's awesome. The other 26% is still really important to this conversation. So when we are addressed with like the issues of this world and how tech is now affecting all of our lives and how we are more reliant on tech more than ever, it's really important to have an informed society. And having an informed society allows for us to be able to call out things that are making our inequities grow more, right? And so another point here is recognizing that all of our industries are really becoming tech industries. And so it's becoming more and more prevalent. And so it's important to have an informed society. And method 3 is do your part. I have a few ways for you to be able to reflect on this. So personally, right? Go home today, think about how you can volunteer. There's a lot of really great organizations that are doing this work. If you have the time, if you have the resources, I'm going to actually be right here. I can talk to you more about how to get involved with organizations like Code Nation. I would also recommending this program, Code Nation or others that can help teach young people how to code. So if you have a nephew, if you have a daughter that might be interested in coding, or maybe they don't even know what it is, this is a really great time for them to learn this because our schools don't have this. This is a really important aspect. And then third, if you have a friend who's looking for a career change, there are a lot of different avenues for you to be able to obtain coding skills, right? Professionally, so this is like in the workforce and in the workplace. So we want to advocate for recruitment strategies that foster a more diverse workforce and diverse talent. And so that can happen in lots of different ways. 2, you want to be mindful of how your work impacts marginalized people. And 3, support a workplace environment that really values the experiences of all people. So those are some tangible things. I know that was only about 10 minutes or so, but we want this conversation to keep on going. We want these conversations to be at the forefront of what happens the rest of this conference and in your careers. So thank you again, Suzanne, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. That was awesome. So now we can open up for questions, or if you have a discussion topic that you want to throw out, please do. I'll start with the first question. Do you have a recommendation for someone who maybe wants to be an ally and doesn't know where to start? Like, where would someone with privilege lend their privilege most effectively?
Sure. Excellent question. So there are ways, I guess there are levels to like how you want to be an ally. You can be an ally by volunteering, and we have different opportunities, different ways to get involved at an organization like Code Nation. You can sponsor a field trip for students. You could attend our hackathon that happens in March. But also I would encourage all of you to read up on, there are a lot of resources out there, a lot of things that I can probably share with you offline. That would be a really good way for you to found yourself in what diversity, equity, inclusion actually means. Well, great. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We got one. Okay.
So thanks so much. I really liked your presentation. I was just curious if you could go into more depth on some of the stuff you do with alumni, because that's often an area of key value that I know is able to provide a real benefit. So if you could speak to that more, I'd be really interested in learning.
Yeah, so thank you for your question. So in their fellowship class, which is the class that takes place at the tech company, they are not only learning more advanced JavaScript and APIs and all those technical skills, they're also learning those professional skills that will carry them on. So we help them by setting up their LinkedIn accounts. And once they're an alum, we have different conferences. I think we may even have a few students. I just checked my Slack before I got up here. A student, is anyone a student of Code Nation or former student in here? No? Okay, maybe they're stuck out there. But we always engage our students. And the other day, actually, we had a student who graduated from the program several years ago and now graduated college. In her first year in Code Nation, she used her volunteers as references for a job at Google. and she just got that job in San Francisco. So having this network, having this community, and staying connected to our students beyond graduation is what we're trying to do. Because ultimately, we're trying to prepare students for careers in tech, not just to learn how to code.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really great.
Thank you.
I'm on the data science side. And one of the observations I've had in hiring, meaning from an employer trying to recruit perspective, is that so many times the resumes that come back from HR are really not diverse at all. And I'm not even getting the resumes that I would love to consider. And I find that part of the problem right now is the lack of, I guess, role models in data science who are diverse. So I think that a lot of organizations like yours are trying to tackle the problem from, of course, the younger generation. But do you have any thoughts as to right now, how can we get more diversity among people who are a little bit more senior, like myself, or just a bit below in recruitment?
Sure. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you.
So I had the volunteer community lead, so I actually do a lot of recruiting myself. And so I go to a lot of different tech companies and see what they do successfully. Have you heard of an employment resource group? It's an ERG. These are these groups that are intended to provide spaces for minorities, for women at that organization. At Salesforce, they have what's known as an Ohana group. And so there's like a Black Ohana group. There is a Latinx Ohana group. There is the LGBTQ Ohana group. And having these like communities at this organization allows it enables that trust for the folks that are there to be able to really branch out and bring on more of people within their community. I think it's also a way from like the outside. It shows that maybe there are data scientists out there that want to work at your company, but they don't feel like the company is doing enough to actually support them. And so having those ERG groups and providing that space for them is an incentive for a lot of folks of color who might be interested in applying. So I would start thinking about what that might look like for your organization. There are a lot of really great tech meetups all across. Are you from New York? Or yeah, there's always a lot of tech meetups like all across the city that are really made for these types of opportunities, exchanging contacts and networking. It takes a village, right? But I would think about those two things. Yeah, thank you.
And just before, did you have a question? Yay!
Hi, my name is Amanda Crawford, and one of the questions that I have is, how do you keep the students engaged? So I've come across students who just may be good at something, but the content or the way that it's taught may not really be interesting enough to continue. So what are some of the things that you've seen or Code Nation have seen to keep the students interested in and to pursue more complex material?
Sure. Thank you so much, Amanda, for your question. I think, so the courses are taught by 4 volunteers usually. They're on teams of 4. You usually have a lead teacher. We have like 3 support volunteers. The courses also has a program manager like myself, who are former teachers. And so we can provide those coaching skills to be able to allow for the volunteer to be able to teach in a more engaging way. We're also there just as, our classes are fun. I'll just say that. I mean, we do have fun in the class. Our curriculum has been developed over time by not only our staff, but developers and our students. So each year it gets better. It's probably at the best it's ever been at this point. But yeah, there are different ways of doing it, different teaching strategies that we enable. It's all in our pedagogy. And yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Woo. Have some water, please.
Hi. So DEI work often falls on minorities to actually do the vast majority of it. So how do those of us with like the most privilege as a white straight male, how do I support DEI efforts more effectively without like it's a fraught space, right? I can't communicate often in ways where I don't understand the experience of someone, but I want to help in a way. So how can I best do that, and how can we help other people do that as well?
Thank you so much for that. That's really important. I think there are levels to how to get involved. I think the philosophy of stepping up and stepping back is really important in this conversation. There are going to be moments where you may need to be a voice to have something change, right? But that's also recognizing like that if it's not your moment to be at the forefront, then I think that's something that is like by case. But as an ally, you can do that on a day-to-day. There are things within your control that you can do to be able to allow for that. And it's tough because it's also like trying to understand like when is the right time to step up, right? And when to step back. I guess it's more of a conversation. We can always talk like offline, but I also has to see like what is really happening at your organization and what types of things are you trying to highlight. But I would just encourage the philosophy of when it's time to step up, not just like dive in, but but sometimes it's like important just to like show that you are there and be supportive in other ways that are within your control.
Just to add to that, the bingo card has some really great ideas too. And then, so any more questions? This has been really great. And I'll just before we get back to our individual conversations, I wanted to let everyone know that Gateway School for Technology is out in the expo hall. They are helping students from difficult backgrounds find technology. Here they are right here. So come talk to them if you also want to learn more, and go visit them in the expo hall too. So that's great. And Andrew, thank you again so much. Thank you so much for the work that you and Code Nation are doing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.